The wind blew hard across the empty desert, throwing sand against Alan Carter's goggles. He and his team had been digging in this spot for 3 weeks. They thought this place was once an old trading post. So far, they had only found broken pots, rusty tools, and a few pieces of old jewelry. Nothing special. Nothing that would make news back home. Alan wiped sweat from his face. The afternoon sun was very hot. The money from the university was almost gone. Without finding something important soon, they would not get more money for their work. Alan needed to find something big, something amazing. Dr. Carter. Olivia Winters called from the east side of the dig site. She was his best student. You should come see this. Alan walked through the deep sand. His boots sank with each step. When he reached Olivia, she was kneeling next to something metal sticking out of the ground. This doesn't match the time period, she said, brushing away. Sand. The metal looks different. As they carefully dug around the object, they saw it was a crate about the size of a small chest. Its surface was strangely shiny, even though it had been buried for what must have been hundreds of years. There were no marks on it, no stamps, nothing to show where it came from. This is odd, Alan said, running his fingers along the smooth edge. There's no clear way to open it. The sun began to set, making long shadows across the dig site. The rest of the team had gone back to camp, leaving Alan and Olivia to cover the strange crate for the night. As they put a tarp over it, a sudden gust of wind blew across the site, and Alan stopped moving. Did you hear that? He asked. Olivia looked confused. Hear what? I thought I heard ... Alan shook his head. Never mind. Let's go back. That night, Alan could not sleep. The desert was quiet, except for the occasional sound of tent fabric moving in the breeze. He turned over and over, thinking about what he thought he had heard. Whisper, very quiet, saying, "Please open me." Before dawn, he left his tent and went back to the dig site. The sky was still dark, with stars shining like scattered diamonds. Alan walked to the tarp-covered crate and knelt beside it. I must be going crazy, he muttered to himself. Pulling back the tarp. In the dim light of his flashlight, the crate seemed to pulse, very slightly. Alan leaned closer, and then he heard it clearly. Please open me. For the next 3 days, Alan kept the voice a secret. The team continued their work, carefully studying the crate's unusual features. They couldn't figure out how old it was. The metal was unlike any material known to modern science light, yet very dense. Cool to touch despite the desert heat. Dr. Nancy Powell, the team's material expert, was confused. I can't even scratch the surface to get a sample, she said, holding up a diamond-tipped drill bit that had been worn down to nothing. Whatever this is, it's beyond our current technology. Meanwhile, the whispers continued, becoming more insistent each night. Only Alan could hear them, and they were starting to affect his sleep. Dark circles formed under his eyes, and his colleagues noticed his strange behavior. You look awful, said Frank Miller, the team's photographer, during their morning meeting. Maybe you should rest today. Alan waved away the suggestion. I'm fine, just excited about our find. Later that afternoon, as the team took a lunch break, Alan stayed at the crate, pretending to take measurements. Once alone, he pressed his ear against the cool metal surface. Who are you? He whispered. A friend, came the reply, soft as the desert breeze. Someone who has waited a very long time. Please open me, Alan. A cold feeling ran down his spine. It knew his name. What are you? He demanded, louder this time. A gift, knowledge, power, everything humanity has ever wanted. The voice was smooth, calming. Just open me, and I'll show you wonders beyond imagination. When Olivia returned from lunch, she found Alan seemingly talking to himself. Dr. Carter, is everything okay? Alan straightened quickly. Yes, just ... thinking out loud. Scientists have it? That evening, during their team dinner, Dr. Gregory Wallace, the team's language expert, shared what he had found. I've been studying the subtle patterns on the crate's surface. They might be a form of writing, but unlike anything in our records. What do you think it says? Asked Nancy. Gregory shrugged. No idea, but if I had to guess, I'd say it's a warning. Alan nearly choked on his water. Why a warning? It could be instructions, or a greeting. Most sealed ancient objects with writing are either warnings or curses, Gregory explained, especially ones this well preserved. Our ancestors weren't stupid. They knew how to keep dangerous things contained. That night, the voice was louder, more insistent. They're going to take me away, Alan. Study me in some government building. You'll never know what's inside. This is your discovery, your legacy. Open me now while you still can. Alan sat up in his bed, sweating despite the cool night air. The voice was right. Once the university board saw their reports, the crate would be taken away to some secret research center. His career would benefit from the discovery, sure, but he would never know the truth. Before he could change his mind, Alan was on his feet, flashlight in hand, making his way back to the crate. The moon hung low in the sky, casting an eerie glow over the dig site. Alan's heart beat fast as he approached the crate, now completely uncovered after days of careful digging. I'm here, he whispered. Tell me how to open you. Press your hand against the center. Feel the rhythm. Match your heartbeat to mine. Alan paused and placed his palm flat against the cool metal. At first, nothing happened. Then he felt it a subtle vibration, a pulse that slowly matched his own racing heart. The surface under his hand grew warm, and fine lines of light appeared, spreading outward in a complex pattern. The top of the crate seemed to melt away rather than open, pulling back like liquid metal. Inside was darkness, but not empty darkness. Something moved, shifted, like black silk flowing in a wind that wasn't there. What are you? Alan asked again, his voice barely audible. Instead of answering, the darkness rose, reaching out toward him. Alan should have backed away, should have run, but he stayed frozen, fascinated by the beautiful, terrible thing coming out of the crate. The first tendril of darkness touched Alan's wrist, and suddenly his mind was filled with images. He saw stars and strange worlds, amazing machines he couldn't understand, and the rise and fall of beings across countless planets. It was exciting. Too much to take in, and wonderful all at once. Yes, the voice said, no longer just in his head, but all around him. Now you begin to understand. By morning, the camp was in chaos. Olivia had woken up early to check some readings and found Alan standing beside the open crate, staring blankly at the sky. The crate itself was empty, its inside a shiny mirror that showed nothing. Dr. Carter? She walked toward him carefully. Alan? Are you okay? When he turned to her, Olivia gasped. Alan's eyes were different, still blue, but with tiny spots of light that seemed to move, like very small galaxies spinning in his eyes. I've never been better, he said, his voice sounding strange and new. I've seen everything, Olivia. Everything. Dr. Powell was the first to notice the small changes in Alan's skin, a faint pattern, like the one on the crate, now visible just under the surface. When Frank tried to take a picture of Alan, the camera broke, its memory card ruined. I think we need to call for help and get out of here, Gregory suggested after seeing Alan easily lift a piece of equipment that usually needed 3 people to move. Whatever was in that crate is now in me, Alan finished, suddenly appearing behind the language expert. And it's amazing. By noon, half the team had packed their things, scared by Alan's strange behavior and the odd things happening around the camp. Tools stopped working. Radios got no signal. and the air itself felt charged with an unusual energy. "You can't leave," Alan announced as they got the trucks ready. "None of you can leave, not until I understand everything." With a wave of his hand, all the truck engines died at the same time. "What did you do?" Frank demanded. Alan smiled, but the smile didn't reach his changed eyes. "I'm protecting you. From yourselves. From the limited thinking that has held humans back for so long." Olivia walked toward him carefully. "Alan, this isn't you. Whatever came out of that crate is changing you. Controlling you? No, Olivia. It's freeing me. And I can free all of you too." He held out his hand to her. "Let me show you." 3 days after the crate had been opened, the research camp had become something else. The tents were still there, but they were used differently now. They held the changing bodies of Alan's former teammates, each in different stages of transformation. Only Olivia remained unchanged, kept away from the others by Alan's orders. She had become the one person he still talked to as a human. "They aren't in pain," he told her as they stood outside the main tent, where moans and whispers in unknown languages came through the canvas. "They're evolving, becoming more than human." "What exactly was in that crate, Alan?" Olivia asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Alan's eyes swirled with cosmic light as he thought about her question. "Not what? Who? A traveler. A refugee from a universe falling apart. The last of its kind, looking for a new home." "And it chose you?" "It chose humanity. I was just the first to listen." He pointed to the vast desert around them. "This planet is young, strong, perfect for a new beginning." Inside the command tent, Olivia had managed to hide a satellite phone, one that still worked when Alan's influence grew weaker during what she thought were rest periods for the entity now sharing his body. She had sent coordinates and a desperate call for help, but had no way of knowing if the message had been received. That night, as Alan stood motionless in the desert for hours, his body occasionally rippling with patterns of light as he communicated with the stars, Olivia crept among the transformation tents. What she saw horrified her. Her colleagues were changing, their bodies becoming more like the fluid darkness she had glimpsed inside the crate. Nancy Powell, once a brilliant scientist, now floated a few inches above her cot, her arms and legs longer and moving like plants underwater. Her eyes, when they opened, were huge and black, reflecting distant stars that weren't in Earth's sky. Frank no longer had a human shape at all. His body a shifting mass of geometric patterns that somehow still had a mind. When he sensed Olivia's presence, a tendril reached toward her, trying to communicate through a series of complex light pulses. Only Gregory seemed to be fighting the change. His body twisted in pain as the transformation fought against his will. When he saw Olivia, he managed to whisper, "Kill us. Kill him. Before it spreads." Dawn brought the sound of helicopters coming from the east. Alan appeared beside Olivia as she left her tent, his movement instant, as if he had folded space to reach her. "You called for help," he said. "Not a question, but a statement of fact. They're suffering, Alan. This isn't evolution. It's invasion." Alan tilted his head, studying her with those inhuman eyes. "You still see through such a limited view, but you'll understand soon enough." The helicopters grew louder, and Alan turned his gaze skyward. "Your species fears what it doesn't understand. They'll try to destroy what they find here." "Let me talk to them," Olivia pleaded. "I can explain." "There's nothing to explain." Alan raised his hands toward the approaching aircraft. "They come with weapons and fear. I come with transcendence." The lead helicopter suddenly veered off course, as if caught in an invisible current. It spun wildly before crashing into the desert floor in a ball of flame. The others immediately turned back, but Alan's influence reached out, grabbing one more from the sky and bringing it down gently before them. when the side door slid open. Armed soldiers poured out, weapons pointed at Alan. He stood calmly, not worried by the threat. "This is your only warning," called the squad leader, a man whose nameplate read Daniels. "Stand down and surrender yourself." Alan smiled. "I'm afraid you don't understand the situation. You are not here to capture me." He gestured toward the fallen helicopter. "You're here to join us." The soldiers formed a circle around Alan, their guns steady in trained hands. Olivia stood frozen, afraid for everyone involved. She knew Alan was no longer just Alan, but she also knew the soldiers had no idea what they were facing. "On your knees, hands behind your head," shouted Daniels, stepping forward with his weapon, aimed at Alan's chest. Alan tilted his head, curious rather than threatened. "You humans always resort to violence first. It's a limiting approach." With a small gesture of his fingers, every gun in the circle fell apart, pieces dropping harmlessly to the sand. The soldiers stared at their empty hands in shock. "What did you do?" Daniels demanded, backing away slowly. "I showed you how fragile your tools are," Alan replied. "Now, let me show you how fragile the barriers between what you are and what you could become truly are." Alan raised both hands, and a wave of darkness flowed from his fingertips. It moved like liquid smoke, engulfing 3 soldiers before the others could react. Their screams were brief, cut short as the darkness seeped into their skin, their eyes, their mouths. "Run!" Olivia shouted to the remaining soldiers. "Get away from here!" But it was too late. The darkness spread from soldier to soldier, faster, and they could flee. Only Daniels made it back to the helicopter, slamming the door shut behind him. The pilot, seeing what was happening, immediately lifted off, the helicopter rising swiftly into the morning sky. Alan watched it go, making no move to stop it this time. "They'll be back," he said to Olivia, "with more weapons, more soldiers. They won't understand until they experience the change themselves." The transformed soldiers stood in perfect stillness, their eyes now containing the same cosmic light as Alan's. When he nodded to them, they moved as one toward the tents where the rest of the research team was undergoing their own transformation. "What are you planning, Alan?" Olivia asked, following him as he walked back to where the empty crate still sat. "Planning suggests limited thinking, working within constraints of time and resources," he answered. "I'm not planning. I'm becoming. We are becoming. And soon, this world will become as well." In the days that followed, more helicopters came, then planes. Each was dealt with in the same way, some destroyed, others allowed to land so their crews could join the growing number of transformed beings in the camp. The circle of Alan's influence expanded daily, the very sand and air around the camp changing in subtle ways. A week after the crate had been opened, the first news crews arrived at the military perimeter that had been established 5 miles from the camp. Their cameras couldn't capture clear images of the site. Everything appeared distorted, as if the light itself behaved differently within Alan's domain. Olivia remained unchanged, though she began to understand more of what was happening. Alan kept her close, explaining things in ways her human mind could almost grasp. "The entity that was in the crate isn't controlling me," he told her as they walked the perimeter of the camp one evening. The ground beneath their feet glowed softly. With each step Olivia took, responding to her still human presence, "We've merged. Its knowledge, its essence, has combined with mine. I'm more than I was, but still myself." "Then why transform everyone else? Why not give them a choice?" Olivia asked. Alan stopped, looking up at the stars. "Choice is an illusion when you can't comprehend the options. If I explained what awaits on the other side of transformation, human language would fail. Human concepts would crumble. The only way to understand is to experience. But you've left me human. Olivia pointed out. Because someone needs to witness with human eyes. Someone needs to record the transition in human terms. He touched her cheek gently. And because I still remember what it was to love you as a human. That night, Olivia used the satellite phone one last time. The military perimeter had been breached in several places, the transformed beings walking through gunfire unharmed, touching soldiers who then joined their ranks. The government was considering more extreme measures. Rumors of nuclear options had reached her through brief radio transmissions she had intercepted. "This is Dr. Olivia Winters," she whispered into the phone. "I may be the last unaltered human at Ground Zero. What's happening here isn't hostile. It's evolution. Alan calls it transcendence. Please, don't attack. It won't work, and it's not necessary. They aren't destroying humans. They're changing them into something more." The next morning, a single helicopter was allowed to approach. It landed at the edge of the camp, and a woman stepped out alone, unarmed. She wore a simple business suit and carried only a small case. Alan and Olivia met her halfway between the helicopter and the camp. "Dr. Lisa Bennett," the woman introduced herself. "I've been sent to negotiate." "There's nothing to negotiate," Alan said. "A transformation has begun and cannot be stopped." "We understand that," Dr. Bennett replied, surprising both Alan and Olivia. "But we would like to understand the process better. To prepare humanity. To prevent panic." Alan studied her for a long moment. "You're different from the others they sent. You're curious, not afraid." "I'm a scientist, like you once were," she said. "I want to understand before I judge." "Then understand." "This," Alan said, his voice resonating with power. "What was in that crate traveled across galaxies, across time itself, seeking a compatible host species. Humanity is that species poised between animal instinct and higher consciousness, ready to evolve beyond physical limitations." "And what happens to Earth?" Dr. Bennett asked. "Earth becomes the center of a new kind of civilization," Alan explained. "One that will eventually spread to the stars, but not through clumsy spaceships and technology. Through transformation of matter itself, through becoming one with space and time." Dr. Bennett opened her case and removed a small device. "May I take readings? As a first step toward understanding?" Alan nodded, and Dr. Bennett began moving around them, the device in her hand beeping softly. Olivia noticed how Alan watched her with something like approval. "She reminds me of you," he said quietly to Olivia. "Open-minded, brave. Will you transform her too?" Olivia asked. "Only if she chooses," Alan replied. "Some must remain human, at least for now, bridges between what is and what will be." Dr. Bennett spent 3 days at the camp, taking readings and talking with both Alan and Olivia. She seemed less interested in the transformed beings that now numbered in the hundreds, and more focused on the empty crate that had started everything. "Material is unlike anything we've ever seen," she said, running her instruments over the crate's surface. "It doesn't match any known element on Earth." "Because it isn't from Earth," Alan explained, standing nearby. His form had become less solid over the past week, occasionally shifting like smoke when he wasn't focusing on maintaining a human appearance. The crate was designed to survive the journey between stars, between dimensions. "And what was inside the entity that's now part of you? What does it want?" Dr. Bennett asked. "To survive, to grow, to elevate humanity beyond its current limitations." Alan's eyes swirled with cosmic light. "It came from a dying universe, one that had evolved to its final form. Now it seeks to help this universe, starting with Earth, reach similar heights." Dr. Bennett nodded, making notes on a small tablet. "And the transformation process, is it painful for the subjects?" "Pain is a concept tied to human nervous systems and brains," Alan said. The process rewrites both. There is confusion at first, then clarity beyond anything a human mind can comprehend. Olivia watched this exchange with growing concern. Dr. Bennett was too calm, too accepting. Something felt wrong. That evening, while Alan was communing with the stars as he did each night, Olivia approached Dr. Bennett in her tent. "What's your real purpose here?" Olivia asked directly. No government would just accept what's happening. Dr. Bennett looked up from her tablet, her face expressionless. "You're very perceptive, Dr. Winters." She put down the tablet and sighed. "I'm gathering information, yes, but not just to understand, to find a weakness." "A weakness?" "Every living thing has one, even gods." Dr. Bennett's eyes hardened. "What came out of that crate may be powerful, but it's still a living entity, and all life can be stopped." Olivia felt a chill run through her. "You're planning to kill Alan, to kill all of them." "We're planning to save humanity," Dr. Bennett corrected. "The real humanity, not whatever these beings are becoming." Olivia should have felt relief that someone was fighting back, that the government hadn't simply surrendered. Instead, she felt torn. The Alan she had known was gone, yes, but what he was becoming, what he offered humanity, was it really a threat? Or was it the next step in human evolution? "How?" Olivia asked finally. "How do you plan to stop this?" Dr. Bennett studied her for a long moment. "Why should I tell you? You're clearly sympathetic to them." "I'm the only unaltered human who's witnessed everything from the beginning," Olivia said. "I know more about what's happening than anyone. If there's a way to stop this that doesn't involve mass destruction, I want to know it." After a long pause, Dr. Bennett reached into her pocket and pulled out a small metal sphere. "This contains a targeted virus, designed based on the readings I've been taking. It's programmed to attack the alien material that's transforming human cells, breaking the bond between human DNA and the foreign entity." "You're going to release a virus?" Olivia asked, horrified. "It won't harm normal humans. Only those who've been changed." Dr. Bennett put the sphere back in her pocket. "It will activate tomorrow at noon, when I'm safely away from here." Olivia stood frozen, unsure what to do. Should she warn Alan? Should she try to stop Dr. Bennett? Or should she help her? Before she could decide, the tent flap opened, and Alan stood there, his form rippling with barely contained energy. "I heard everything," he said, his voice echoing strangely. "I've been aware of your true purpose since you arrived, Dr. Bennett." Dr. Bennett reached for the sphere in her pocket, but Alan was faster. With a gesture, the pocket sealed itself shut, the fabric fusing together. "That won't work anyway," Alan said calmly. "The entity within me has already analyzed your virus and adapted. Life from my universe evolved far beyond such simple threats billions of years ago. Then why let me stay? Why let me gather data?" Dr. Bennett demanded. "To understand how humans would respond. To give you a chance to accept the inevitable with grace." Alan's form solidified again, looking more human. "And to give Olivia a choice." He turned to Olivia, his eyes softening. "You've remained unchanged all this time, watching, learning. Now you must decide. Will you join us in transformation? Or will you remain human, a bridge between what was and what will be?" Olivia looked between Alan and Dr. Bennett, torn between the world she had known and the unknown future Alan offered. "If I choose to remain human?" she asked. "Then you remain human," Alan said simply. "Free to leave, to live among your kind, to tell our story in your own words. And if more humans resist? If they find other weapons, other viruses?" "They will fail," Alan said, his voice tinged with sadness. "Not because we wish to harm them, but because what's happening cannot be stopped. The transformation has reached a critical point." Even if I died now, the process would continue. Dr. Bennett lunged suddenly, pulling a gun from beneath her jacket. Before she could fire, her body froze, suspended in mid-motion. "I'm disappointed," Alan said, "but not surprised." With a gentle motion of his hand, Dr. Bennett's body began to change, darkness flowing into her through her eyes, her mouth, her very pores. She couldn't scream as the transformation took her. Olivia backed away, frightened by the sudden violence of it. "You said you would give people a choice." "Those who come peacefully have choices," Alan replied. "Those who come with weapons and deception forfeit that right." When the transformation was complete, Dr. Bennett stood before them, her eyes now filled with the same cosmic light as Alan's. She seemed confused at first, then a look of wonder spread across her face. I understand now," she whispered. "It's beautiful." "Tell your masters what you've learned," Alan instructed her. "Tell them resistance is not just futile, but unnecessary. We offer transcendence, not destruction." As Dr. Bennett left in her helicopter, Olivia turned to Alan. "You still haven't told me why you've kept me human all this time." "Because the choice must be yours," Alan said, "freely given. No force, no coercion." "And what if I choose to remain human?" Olivia asked. "Then you will be the last true human to witness the birth of a new kind of life on Earth," Alan replied. "The historian of humanity's final chapter and its new beginning." That night, Olivia stood at the edge of the transformed zone, looking out at the military perimeter in the distance. She could leave now. Alan would let her go. But where would she go? What would she do in a world that was about to change forever? Behind her, the camp glowed with unearthly light, beautiful and terrifying at once. Ahead lay the familiar world, increasingly alien to her after all she had witnessed. The choice was hers to make. 1 month after the crate had been opened, the world had changed forever. The transformation zone now covered 50 miles in every direction from the original camp. The military had pulled back, forming a new perimeter that they knew was just for show. Nothing could stop the spread. Olivia had made her choice. She remained human, the last unchanged person within the zone. She had become a messenger between the transformed beings and the outside world, explaining in human terms what was happening. Today she stood beside Alan at the center of the zone. His form had evolved again, now barely human-shaped, a swirling mass of energy and matter that could take any shape at will. Around them, the desert had changed too. The sand had transformed into crystal-like structures that captured sunlight and turned it into new forms of energy. The air itself seemed alive, carrying information and consciousness between all parts of the zone. "The world leaders are meeting today," Olivia told Alan. "They want to know how far this will spread. Will it cover the entire planet?" "Yes," Alan answered simply, "but not quickly. We are giving humanity time to adjust, to understand, to prepare. It will take years, perhaps decades, to transform the entire world. And those who refuse? Those who will never choose transformation?" Alan's form shifted, taking on a more human appearance so he could look Olivia in the eyes. "There will be places set aside for them, sanctuaries where they can live out their lives as humans. Their children, however, will be born into the new world, naturally part of the greater consciousness." Olivia nodded, making notes on her tablet. She had become the official historian of the transformation, recording everything for future generations to understand. "The people are afraid," she said. "They see the changes here and think it means the end of humanity." "It is an end," Alan agreed, "but also a beginning. The caterpillar fears the cocoon, not understanding the butterfly it will become." A helicopter approached, and Alan nodded, allowing it to land nearby. From it emerged a group of world leaders who had been brave, enough to come see for themselves what was happening. They walked nervously toward Alan and Olivia, their faces showing a mix of fear and wonder. "Welcome," Alan greeted them, his voice resonating on multiple levels. "You have questions. I will answer them." "Is this an invasion?" asked one woman, the president of a powerful nation. "Are you conquering Earth?" "No," Alan replied. "I am still human, in part. The entity that came from the crate did not conquer me. It merged with me. Together, we are offering humanity a gift, evolution beyond your current limitations." "What does that mean, exactly?" asked another leader, an older man with a skeptical expression. "What do we become?" Alan gestured, and the air between them, filled with images, humans transforming, their consciousness expanding, joining with others while still maintaining their individuality, freed from disease and aging, able to reshape matter with thought, to travel among the stars without ships. "We become more," he said simply. "Much more." The leaders asked many more questions, some practical, some philosophical. Alan answered them all patiently, with Olivia adding her human perspective when needed. By the time they left, most seemed less afraid, though still uncertain. As the helicopter flew away, Olivia turned to Alan. "Do you ever regret opening the crate? Do you miss being just human?" Alan was quiet for a long moment. "I remember being human. I remember limitations, pain, fear, uncertainty. I remember loving you." His form shifted slightly. "But no, I don't regret it. What I am now includes all I was before, but also so much more." That evening, Olivia walked to the exact spot where the crate had first been discovered. It remained there, open and empty, a monument to the moment everything changed. She often came here to think, to remember, to write in her journal. As she sat beside the crate, a young boy approached her. He was one of the first children to be born within the zone after the transformation began. He looked human, but his eyes held the now familiar cosmic light. "Are you the last one?" he asked, his voice curious rather than judgmental. "The last unaltered human in the zone?" "Yes," Olivia replied with a smile. "Why?" the boy asked simply. Olivia considered the question. She had asked herself the same thing many times. Someone needs to remember what we were, to understand what we're becoming. Someone needs to keep one foot in the past while stepping into the future. The boy nodded, seeming to understand despite his young age. "Will you change someday?" "I don't know," Olivia answered honestly. "Maybe when I'm very old, at the end of my natural life. Or maybe never. Alan has promised that the choice will always be mine. He was the first," the boy said. "The one who heard the crate." "Yes." Olivia looked at the empty crate beside her. "He shouldn't have listened," people said. "He shouldn't have opened it." "But you don't think that?" the boy observed. Olivia smiled. "I think change is inevitable. If not Alan, someone else would have opened it eventually. Humans are curious by nature. We can't help ourselves." The boy reached out and touched the crate, his fingers tracing the patterns that were now visible in the transformed atmosphere around them. "What will happen when the whole world is changed?" "Then we'll reach for the stars," Olivia said. "Alan says there are other crates out there, on other worlds. Other species who need the gift the entity brings. Will you go?" "To the stars?" Olivia looked up at the darkening sky, where the first stars were becoming visible. "I don't know. Part of me wants to. Part of me feels tied to Earth, to what we were." The boy placed his small hand on hers. "You don't have to decide now. There's time." Olivia nodded, surprised at the wisdom from one so young. "Yes, there's time." As night fell completely, the transformed zone began to glow with its own light, billions of tiny points of luminescence floating in the air, in the ground, in the very fabric of reality. It was beautiful in a way that still took Olivia's breath. Away in the distance, she could see Alan's form, now a tower of light reaching toward the stars. Communicating, perhaps, with whatever existed beyond Earth's atmosphere. Preparing the way for humanity's next great journey. The crate that had started it all sat empty beside her, its purpose fulfilled. A simple container that had carried the seeds of transformation across the vast darkness between stars, waiting patiently beneath the sand until someone curious enough, brave enough, or foolish enough heard its whisper. Please open me, and everything changed.